Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keller, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Illinois in the US, and I have for you today several alternative cards for this month's paper pumpkin kit, which is called Pick of the Crop. I hope you like them. Let's get started. First of all, here is a little peek at the kit. Remember that for this month's kit, you can actually get some of the mini shopping bags. There's one included in the kit, but you can purchase more. So there's a QR code to help you do that. And on the other side is, of course, a tiny little sneak peek of next month's kit, but also anybody who is a subscriber has the chance to win a free kit. So scan that little QR code that comes with your kit, and there's a little quiz that you can take, and you don't even need to get the answers right. That enters you in the drawing to win a free kit. So how fun is that? Remember, like I always say, check on the back to make sure you have everything in your kit. Last month, I had a couple of gift card holders in Sweet Sorbet that were missing. I contacted Stampin' Up! Not only did they send me those 2 gift card holders in Sweet Sorbet, they sent me all of the gift card holders. So I got 10 in all. So they always make it right. You will find a couple of alternatives on the back as well. And I have some for you as well today. The kit comes with Calypso Coral as the ink spot. And you can see my stamps are already well loved and used. I've used almost everything. I think everything except Thinking of You and the little, looks like little strawberry seeds. But you will see some of the other sentiments in the projects, and also the strawberry, the blueberries, and this wonderful little flower stem. So let's get started with the projects. My first card is this one, and I'm already going to change it up, and I felt like it needed a little something more, and I've come up with something that I think will work. So we're going to start with that one. I'm starting this time with a Sweet Sorbet card base. Typical 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle. And then I've got a strip that I cut at 1.5 by 5.5, and we're going to do some stamping. I also have a first layer that's going to go on the inside, and so this is cut at 4 by 5.25, and we're going to stamp on this too, so that's why I brought it in. And also on the envelope, but I think I'll just tell you about that rather than taking the time to stamp it. So I need to bring in a scrap for this piece because we will be stamping around the edges. So I took the wonderful strawberry and blueberry stamps, and I've also got my markers. We'll start with the strawberry. Let's put the blueberry aside for now. We're going to start with the strawberry because I used my markers for this, my Stampin' Right markers. FYI, you do not want your blends for this. Really, really, really important. If you use your Stampin' blends, those alcohol markers, you're going to ruin your stamps. You want your Stampin' Right markers. And I've got Granny Apple Green and Sweet Sorbet. And all I'm going to do is take the brush end and I'm going to color in the leaves, the leaf portion of the stamp, making sure I've got some good color on there. And then the brush end of the Sweet Sorbet, and I'm going to color in the berry itself. You don't have to be neat, you just kind of hold that marker almost parallel to the stamp and run it along until you feel like you've got some good color. And then I'm going to stamp. So what you do need to remember, I'm going to stamp kind of randomly. I don't care if it goes off a little bit. And on this one I had 4 strawberries, but I know I can fit 5, so I'm going to do that because odd numbers are what we're looking for usually. And again, I don't care if I'm going to stamp off the edges a little bit. I started off by masking a section on basic white and then stamping, but I decided afterwards it wasn't enough color and I wanted to color it in like I've done here. And if I did that, the color with the blends, because we will be using the blends to color it in, the color would kind of leak through and you would see it on the back, and I didn't want that. So went with Plan B and stamped them separately. And I'm going to do the rest, but I'm going to put it in fast forward so you can see my process. And then we're also going to do the same thing on the front or the bottom corner of the envelope, or of the inside layer. And I'm going to do the same thing on the front left bottom corner of the envelope, although I won't do it on camera. And I also have a scrap that we're going to use to make these two that we're going to cut out. So our strawberries are finished, and now for the blueberries, we're simply going to use some Starry Sky ink. Night of Navy is actually the color that comes with the, or that coordinates with the kit, but I wanted to use something a little different. And for the strawberries in the kit, they used Calypso Coral, where I used Sweet Sorbet. And so now we're just going to stamp the blueberries here on the front of the envelope. I'll put this up here. Some to cut out. I'll leave that for now. And then on the main part of the card. Quick and easy. And then the next thing I'm going to show you on this piece, how I colored them using this time the blends. So if you are going to make this card, I suggest you do all the stamping first so that you're not switching back and forth between the blends and the markers, just so you don't confuse them. Because again, using your blends on your stamps is going to ruin them. All right, so I'm taking the fine tip of my Granny Apple Green and just coloring it in, coloring in the leaves. And my Sweet Sorbet, I noticed, as you'll see when I show you the envelope, it was splattering a little bit when I opened it, and that meant there were extra little dots of color. So it's just a very tight seal, which is good, but I'm being careful not to splatter. So, and I'm filling in a little bit where there are no lines. And then my process is to just kind of do around the outline, kind of like I did when I colored as a kid. And then fill in. The nice thing is if you miss a spot or anything, you can always go back and add color. And then I don't have the Sweet Sorbet blends, so I'm using Night of Navy, light Night of Navy, to color the inside, and I think it works pretty well. Same thing, just kind of coloring around the inside of the outline, where I have to be a little more careful, and then filling in. And then these I just fussy cut, simply just cut them out with my scissors, and I have those here. And then I also already colored in that strip. It started like this and it ends up looking like this. And then let's do some more stamping. We'll do the sentiment on the inside so that we can put that into our card. For the sentiment, I'm using the Thank You from the Peaceful Moments stamp set, because I felt with the sentiment that's going to be on the outside, You're the Sweetest, I thought thank you was perfect for the inside, and it didn't come with the set that's in the kit. So you of course can use a past kit that has a thank you, but I use the one from Peaceful Moments. And we're going to actually stamp that again in the Sweet Sorbet. And then we'll put that right on the inside using some Stampin' Seal. And our inside is complete. For the outside, I am going to add this time some of the strawberries because I felt I wanted to add just a little something to the front. So that's what we're going to do. I am going to bring in my scrap again because I'm going to stamp off the edge. And we'll bring in that Sweet Sorbet, this time the ink pad, because I'm going to stamp the whole thing. I just want a little tone on tone. And again, kind of moving around and going off the edge. I know they're going to be, this edge here will be seen, but the inside part will not. And I think that's probably pretty good. And just a little more stamping. And for that, I've cut out a label from the wonderful Stylish Shapes dies, which are new in the annual catalog. I used this one, the larger of the two smaller ones. But I love these. I love that they're stitched. I love that they're all different sizes. Very, very versatile as a die set. So I've already cut that out. And I took the You Are the Sweetest sentiment from the kit. And we're going to stamp in Granny Apple Green ink. And because it's photopolymer, I can see right where I'm stamping. And I'm moving it over to the right-hand side because I want to make room for that strawberry. And now all of our stamping is done, and we're going to assemble. The other thing that we need that I've already pre-cut is 2 strips of Starry Sky, and they're cut at 1/4 inch by 5.5 inches. So the first thing we're going to do is put this strip on with some Stampin' Seal and see how it bleeds through. If we did it right on the card front, that would be right on the inside and it would show, and we definitely don't want that. And I'm just eyeballing maybe 3/4 inch or so from the edge. And then for these 2 pieces, I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue. Just because they're so narrow. And I'm using my wonderful new tweezers that I got as part of the Embossing Editions toolkit, which is actually going to be in the mini catalog. That is coming up at the beginning of July. So that's a little sneak peek. You'll be able to buy a tray and an embossing buddy, which takes all the little bits off of your cardstock before you put your embossing powder so that only the embossing powder sticks, and the tweezers and a brush, and then the tray to collect the embossing powder, extra embossing powder. So you'll be seeing those actually for another card that we'll be doing today. I'm still getting the hang of the tweezers, but I know I'm going to love them because I've been wanting them for quite a while. And I'm just butting them, the strips, right up against the one that we stamped on and colored. Just think it adds a nice bit of color to the card. And then for the sentiment, I'm going to bring in some ribbon, and in this case it's the Starry Sky metallic woven ribbon. Beautiful. And I'm just going to make a loop. That's going to go underneath the tag. I'm going to grab a glue dot to hold the loop together in the middle. And then another one that's going to go on the front. because I'm going to adhere that to the tag. Like this. Put it at an angle a little bit. And then I'm going to use a glue dot also to put on the strawberry. We'll put it right about here. And the blueberries. So I'm just putting a glue dot on the edge on the left side because that's where it's going to attach to the tag. Let's say about like that. You don't want to hide the sentiment though. And then on the back, we're going to use dimensionals to pop everything up. And I think in this case, I'm going to use my mini dimensionals because I want to make sure that I get those edges to help hold them down a little bit to each other. And so we'll do like that. So there's a little bit of overlap. And I'm going to use a larger one. And those do come with the kit to help hold that ribbon in place as well. I'm going to take the papers off and put the tag at an angle, about like this, maybe up here. Oh, and what do you think? I do like the addition of the stamped strawberries much better. What do you think? And then we're not quite finished yet. We are actually going to use the 2022-2024 in color matte decorative dots as some accents on the card. So I've got my take your pick tool, the putty end, and I used Starry Sky, one of the larger ones. There are 2 sizes for each. And even though we don't have Granny Apple Green, we have instead Parakeet Party. I'm using one of the darker ones. So I think that still works. It coordinates. And then a Sweet Sorbet, a small one, to put on the tag so that it draws your interest around the card. And then last but not least, what is a card without Wink of Stella? So I'm adding some Wink of Stella to the berries that are on the tag. And it just gives it a little bit of sparkle to add just a little more interest to the card. I'd say that looks pretty good. And after it dries, you could always go back and add another layer of Wink of Stella, but I'd say there's some good sparkle there. Hopefully you can see it on camera. I'm not really sure if you can, but it's just that little bit of sparkle that makes a finishing touch to the card. And there we have our first card. I'll show you the inside. That's all colored so that you can see it. That's what it looks like inside. And of course the envelope. And here are my little splatters of Sweet Sorbet. And I saw that it was happening over and over, but like I said, the lid on it is very tight, which is a good thing, but it was causing a little bit of splatter because it's very well inked, which is also a good thing. So that is card number 1. Here is the second card that I designed, and it's got some similarities to the one that's in the kit. Let me bring it back in to show you. It's got the bread on the little napkin or picnic tablecloth. I'm not sure which it's meant to be. And it's got flowers and the cheese. So I did use the cheese. I did use the bread, but I did some things a little differently. I did not use the little vellum bag because my idea for this, I spent a semester in Europe when I was in college, and we lived on bread and cheese and chocolate. So that was my idea. Especially using the sentiment, you're always so good to others, be good to yourself too. I thought that was a nice way to be good to yourself. And I got that sentiment from the In the Moment stamp set, a wonderful set. And I thought about using some of the other things for a different card and it didn't work out, but I really love the sentiment. And for the chocolates, I used the Nothing's Better Than set and used these two, which I will show you in a minute. But that is the card. I also decided, you know, when you get a sandwich in France, it's wrapped up in paper, or if you get bread. So I decided to recreate that look, and I did that freehand. So I will show you that. But I started with a basic white card base. And we can actually get that ready right away. And then for the base, I cut the card in half because the other side is this, and we are actually going to be using that for the next card. I don't like to waste anything, and having the color on the back seemed like a waste when I could use it for something else, so that's what I did. So we have our card base. We can put that right on with some multi-purpose liquid glue, since it is the same size as the card front at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I use the glue so that I can position it exactly on the front. And there is just a little bit of overhang. There's a little bit of the white that shows through, because it must be just a shade smaller, or the basic white is a shade bigger, but that did not concern me at all. And then if you want to, you could always trim it down a little bit if it really bothers you and you want it to be exact. But that is the card base. And then, so to do the paper wrapper for the bread, I used an envelope. All of them that come in the kit look like this: soft succulent on the outside and Calypso coral on the inside. Calypso coral stripes on white. And I'm just going to cut it down to the size I want. And then I'm going to take the bread, and I want it to be about this high and almost to the bottom. It doesn't need to be all the way to the bottom because it's going to be covered up. And if I did that, it would have the little fold. Well, I wouldn't be going up that high, but I think we'll do it about like this. So all I did for that was grab my paper snips and cut around the outside just very roughly, just so that I know it's going to cover over the bread. And then for the top, I just cut in to make it look like the paper was folded a little bit. So just kind of rough cut that way. We'll do it like this. And there is our paper for the bread. Should have done it a little more neatly, but I think it'll be all right. We might be able to cover that up anyway. And as you see, it has cross hatches like the napkin, which is what I was going for. So I'm going to bring in a scrap, and then I've got my light Calypso coral blend, and I'm using the brush end, and I'm just going to make some lines to mimic the napkin. Really simple, and I think it gives a nice effect. So I'm going to put that aside for the moment. We're going to do a little bit of stamping. And so for that, I have a scrap of soft suede, and I'm going to bring in the chocolate stamps from that Nothing Is Better Than set, and some soft suede ink. We're going to stamp. Give it a good press. When it has ink coverage on the whole thing, you really want to make sure it makes good contact with your cardstock. And then we're going to stamp in Versamark using the outline stamp from that set, the outline of the chocolates, because we are going to do some embossing. So I've got my Versamark, get some good coverage on my stamp. I've got my embossing buddy. I'm going to rub that on a little bit too to make sure, again, there's nothing stray on there that's going to interfere with my stamping. And then we're going to stamp it in Versamark. Hopefully I can do this on camera. Perfect. All right, and you probably can't see it very well, but there is good Versamark ink on there. And now I'm going to take my white embossing powder, and here's the new tray that will be available in the January to June, or July to December mini catalog. And I've got my white embossing powder. So I'm just gonna put some on, make sure that everything is covered, and then I'm going to put most of it right back in that jar. I always flick, that gets the excess off. But if you feel that there's still some there, you can take the brush and you can brush away any stray marks. This looks pretty good, but sometimes I do need to do that. And you can also use the brush to put the stray embossing powder back into the container. You just twist off the bottom and then brush the little bits down until they get to that opening, and then back inside the container it goes, so that you have very little waste. And now we're just going to heat emboss using the heat tool. Make sure you're not too close to your work surface because it could melt my grid paper since it's laminated. There we go. Now we've got a wonderful white outline for our chocolates, and I'm going to use a die from the Love You More Than die set to cut out the chocolates, and I will be right back. So now I have my chocolates all cut out, and I'm going to bring in the other components of the kit that I've used, the cheese and the strawberry and blueberry die cut. And for the tag, I used the top of that envelope that I just cut apart. So we're going to stamp on that in Calypso Coral. We'll turn it this way, I think. And using the sentiment, you're always so good to others, be good to yourself too. And it's a little wrinkly. I'm going to move it over a little bit where it's not. And actually, we'll save this. We'll do some stamping also on the inside. Love you a whole bunch. So I'll move this aside for a minute and we'll do our stamping on the inside. And this sentiment, of course, comes from the kit. All right, we've got I love you a whole bunch for the inside sentiment. And then as you saw, we're also going to stamp the strawberries and the blueberries again, the same way we did for the first card. So I'm bringing in my markers again for the strawberry. Again, the Stampin' Right markers. Granny Apple Green for the leaves. And this time, Calypso Coral for the strawberry itself. And the blueberries again in Night of Navy, since that is what coordinates with the kit. So our stamping on the inside is done. And that actually is all of our stamping. So now we'll just put everything together. I am using the rectangular postage stamp punch to cut out the sentiment. Oops. And actually, we're going to cut it down a little bit since it's got to go through on the side. And then just center it and punch it out. And then to layer it, I took a scrap of crushed curry, which again is one of the coordinating colors for the kit. And we'll punch one of those out as well. And what I did for this was just cut it at an angle. You can use your trimmer or just your paper snips. And cut it from corner to corner on the diagonal. And then I just layered it. And I put some seal on the back of each corner to do that. Just making a thin little border. I'm going to grab some of that wonderful Sweet Sorbet metallic ribbon again, and we'll cut another loop. Again, that's long enough to go on the top, to show behind on the top and the bottom. Maybe a little shorter. And the same as before, a glue dot in the middle to hold it together. And one on the front, also over the middle. And we'll put it behind the tag and bump up the tag with dimensionals. Again, putting one over the middle and overlapping the edges that come together to help hold them down, and then a couple in the other corners. Take the paper off, and then I think we'll wait to position this. We'll do the bread first. So I'm just adhering each piece to the other with Stampin' Seal. And putting it over to one side. And I'm not going to press it until I have all of my pieces in place where I want them to go. And then when I'm happy, we'll press everything down. Whoops, forgot the seal on that one. And then our sentiment label. Again at an angle. And then last but not least for this one, we're going to use the Iridescent Rhinestone Basic Jewels for some bling. And this has 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. So I'm using the large and some of the small ones. Actually, maybe we'll put a medium one up here, and then the small ones. So that your eye is drawn around the card. And there is card number 2. Again, what I did on the inside, I also did on the front left bottom corner of the envelope. And I decided not to color it in because, again, I didn't want it to show on the back. So we just left it that way, but that is card number 2. And here is the last card for today. And again, it is similar to the idea of one of the cards, but again, I changed it up. This is the card in the set, in the kit, and you can see it's oriented a different way and it uses a different card base, but I decided it went wonderfully with the back side of the card that we used for the last one. We used half the card front here and the card back for this one. And so I did start off with a basic white card base again. And we've got that second half of the card, so we'll put that on right away with multi-purpose liquid glue. And for this one, I liked the idea that they had in the card of using that bread on the cart, but the cheese was very large. The cheese die cut is very large, so the proportions were off. And so I was trying to figure out how to make a little wedge of cheese. And what I discovered is that when I went to take out the little inserts from the wheels, some of them looked like wedges of cheese. So that is what I used to make these wedges here. I'm going to bring in my scrap again, and I chose the ones that to me most look like a wedge of cheese rather than a triangle. And to mark them so that they look like Swiss cheese, I used this little stamp from the Hello Ladybug set. I thought about using the one that comes in the kit, but it does look more like seeds than it does like holes in Swiss cheese. Definitely looks more like seeds to me, but you could try that too. That might work if you're in a pinch. And I used crushed curry ink, since that is the coordinating color. And I just stamped each of them once or twice. And then I took my blending brush that I have right here. Blending brush, there it is. And basically just dabbed it in the ink and dabbed it on top of each of those little wedges of cheese till I got the desired color. And there I have my cheese. Oh, and before we get rid of this, we're going to do some more stamping. So I'll put my little wedges of cheese over there. I've got a scrap of crushed curry. And we're going to make this pot, and we're using a stamp that comes from the Jar of Flowers stamp set, because I decided I wanted 2 pots of those wonderful flowers, and they give you plenty in the kit to make several cards. So I'm going to stamp that, and then I'm going to cut it out freehand. So I'll do that in a moment. And we're good with the crushed curry ink. And next I'm bringing in Rich Razzleberry. And while it's actually Blackberry Bliss that is listed as the coordinating color, I thought Rich Razzleberry made a nice complement to those flowers. So this time I have a stamp that comes from the Plentiful Plants stamp set. We're going to be using this one. And so we're going to ink that up with Rich Razzleberry. And I'm going to stamp it upside down just to be a little more efficient with my paper. And I'm going to stamp 2 of them. And then cut them out with the dies that coordinate with the Plentiful Plants stamps, which are the Perfect Plants dies. And so there's a die that cuts out that pot. So I'm going to cut both of those out, one with my paper snips and the other one with the dies. And actually, before I do that, let's finish stamping while I have the ink pad. So we have a label from the set and the sentiment, "You're the pick of the crop." So we're going to stamp that right on the label. And then for the inside, I used the Rich Razzleberry again. We'll move that to the side as well. And we're going to stamp "Love You a Whole Bunch." And for the pot, we'll do that first. So I'm going to do it a little differently from the way I did it the first time. I ended up stamping, but you could see the stem, so I colored it in with my light Blackberry Bliss blend. But what I was thinking is that if I just inked the stamp to not include the stem like this, so you see it's inked all the way up to here, but the stem is not inked, and then layer it like this, you don't need to use your blend. And there you go. This again is also on the front left corner of the envelope. So all of our stamping then is done, and I'm going to cut these out and be right back. All right, now that everything's cut out, we'll do our assembly. So this is just going in the middle, and I'm using my Stampin' Seal for most of it, but I am going to put a couple of glue dots in the center of the wheels. And then I also did put a little dab of multi-purpose liquid glue toward the bottom, but not exactly on the bottom because there is a little bit of overlap with the card. So I put it off to the side just a little bit, just to help hold those down, like that. And we'll center this. And so our pot on the left, I'm going to put the multi-purpose liquid glue, or the Stampin' Seal, I should say, down toward the bottom, leaving that top open. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can fit, here are my other components, fit the flowers and tuck them right underneath. So I'm going to use Stampin' Seal on this, again with a little glue dot at the top, just to make sure that everything is held well in place. Tuck it in, and tuck it behind a little bit. And then for this pot, I'm also taking my paper snips and just doing this, cutting along that line on the inside and not even all the way across, because I want to be able to do the same thing, tuck this in, but make it look like it's in the pot. And so that's how I solved that problem. So I'm going to, again, put my Stampin' Seal on the bottom half of the card, or of the pot. And so now we can still tuck this in. Let's see if we can grab it here. There we go. It kind of gets in the way, that little lip, but you can fit it in there. And so the same thing, I'm going to put some Stampin' Seal on the back and a glue dot. And we'll fit it back in there. And the flower die cut helps hold down that pot. And then this pot goes, I did put this one on the inside, but I'm not going to do that. I had forgotten that. I put it on the inside of the first one, but I think it looks fine just stamped. And so that's what I did. That's what I did to hide the fact that the stem showed, is I put that die cut in there. But since we came up with the solution, I don't need to do it on this one. And then again, I stamped the pot and the flower stem on the envelope, which I think I already said. And so now we'll put on our wonderful crusty loaf of French bread, our French baguette, on the cart. And the cheese. And so for these, I just use glue dots, or you could use a little dot of multi-purpose liquid glue. And this one is small, so I'm going to sort of tuck that little glue dot behind it so it doesn't show. And there we have our cheeses. And for the sentiment, I just bumped it up with some dimensionals. And put that down here, just like they did on the card in the kit. And then for a last little touch, I'm bringing in the brushed brass butterflies and my take your pick tool. And so this time I put 2 large butterflies toward the top. And a smaller one on the sentiment. And I also used the twine from the kit, and I made a little bow. And I like to work right off the roll, so I just made a little bow. Just till I got it to the size that I wanted, and then snipped the end. And I'm using a glue dot to adhere this. Again, kind of scrunching it behind so it doesn't show, and putting that right on the edge. And that is it. That is card number 3. I'm going to bring them all back in so that you can see them. Card number 1 and card number 2 along with card number 3. And for the cute little bag that comes with the kit, this is how I decorated it, similarly to what they show in the picture. They do the hello and they just did a few random strawberries, but I like the idea of doing the same thing that I did here or something very similar. And I debated whether to color them in, but then I decided to just leave them as is. But I think it would work to use your blends to color them in just like we did here. So that is it. Those are the projects for today. I hope you like them. If you do, oh, let's see. You know what? Let me bring in the other card. This was really the finished one with the strawberries on it. So that's the one I want to show. So I hope you like them. Please let me know. Leave me some love in the comments and let me know which one is your favorite and what you think of this month's kit. And are you excited about the chance to win a prize for next month's kit, to win a free kit? That's really exciting. So thanks again for joining me. I so appreciate you watching and leaving your comments for me. It means a lot. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And if you click on the bell, you'll be notified when I post new videos. I do try to do paper pumpkin alternatives every month. I also have other cards, scrapbook pages, home decor items, some tips and techniques videos. So there is a lot there for you to see. Check it out when you have a chance. And I will see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Happy stamping.